Hey, so I just finished watching all 9 episodes of WandaVision, and while it was good, it was a definite improvement over Endgame, Far From Home, and all the recent titles from Marvel, kind of transitioning phases, or the MCU. It was still very frustrating, as like a longtime fan of the MCU, because it asks a lot of questions without ever answering any of them. And it was also frustrating because it was extremely predictable to the point of almost self-parody. Like, since Endgame was trying way too hard to be unpredictable to the point of being laughably incoherent, the reason why it's so unpredictable is because it does so many things that logistically don't make sense. So this movie ties it back by doing a lot of fan theories, but also which do make sense, but then also doing things that have no exactly answer to them. Like there's so many plot lines that are just loose threads that never get resolved that are like really frustrating, and it's listed as a series finale, so I don't know if they'll ever get listed or maybe they'll get resolved in other movies or TV shows, but it's kind of hard to say because when you finish the show you just don't know. For example, Endgame had some loose threads too that would be resolved in Loki, which is another TV show coming out later. But Marvel trying something different is something that I have to praise for sure. Them doing more of like an art house mystery thing in the first 2 episodes felt very fresh. Uh, Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany did a great job with their respective performances, going all over the place with different versions of their characters. There were some fun surprises amidst all of the predictable ones. And for the most part, I liked where the plot went, but there was just a couple of moments where I just wished it did something a little bit different, something a little more unpredictable, not quite like Endgame, but like in a way that like, wow, I didn't see coming or anyone saw coming. And I wished it was just a little bit bigger in scope, like a little grander. I It kept feeling like there was some bigger villain than what was going on, or that the show was setting up the main character as a sympathetic villain, which I wish they would have stuck with. But instead, it does the thing with like the red herring is the villain, kind of like Knives Out. Only they seem too obvious to be the villain, so surely they can't be the villain. So then you start thinking of other people that would be too predictable to be the villain as well, and like how it must be them because they're like the obvious second choice after that. But then it turns out to be the first choice, and you're like, okay, well, that was the first person you suspect because it's so obvious. But I really thought you were going to go with the second choice. Another good example would be the little things, how you're supposed to guess Jared Leto first because he's too obvious that he would be a red herring. So then you start suspecting like Denzel Washington and Rami Malek and all these other people because they're the obvious second guesses. But this movie acts like, I mean, this TV show acts like Jared Leto is the killer, and it's all too obvious, and it's really disappointing because there's so many wilder directions that you could go, and it doesn't go there. But it being like equal parts sitcom, mystery, and sci-fi MCU action, typical thing, does work very well in its favor for trying something new. And I hope that the MCU does go in this direction where it's constantly exploring new things to keep it from feeling so stale. But I just hope it doesn't go the disastrous plot developments that Endgame has been going. But I think that there's a lot of fun potential here for sure. I'd give it an I don't know if I'd give it an 8 out of 10 or 7.75 out of 10. It's better than we usually get from Marvel, but it's far from perfect. I did watch through all the end credit scenes, including the mid and after credit scenes of the ninth and final episode, and I just wish that, yeah, it would have been a bit more resolved after that. I heard that this is going to be leading into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but, I was also glad that the sentimentality worked better here than it did in Endgame. Still didn't quite work as emotionally resonant as it did in like Infinity War. I didn't feel quite that engaged, but still, you know. So yeah.